Okay, so we're going to get started. First, I want to welcome everyone. We're going to have a few folks joining us. So thank you, supervisors, both Supervisor Barger and Hahn, for being with us today. We're going to start off with what we've started doing traditionally is we're going to start you off with a message from our dear friends at the California JPIA. Give me 1 second.
In the mid-70s, there was an insurance crisis. Case law was finding that there were liabilities associated with cities that some insurers hadn't really perceived before. The Contract Cities Association had an infrastructure in place to address a variety of issues, and so they put their city managers committee on the task of trying to come up with a solution for this insurance crisis. When the cities formed the California JPIA, as we call it today, it was really about ensuring that there was reliable coverage available. We work with the members, finding out what's going on in their organization to try to help them manage risk better.
All right, special thanks to the JPIA for being a longtime partner of the association. Now, with no further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce you all to our president for this year, Ms. Lindsay Horvath.
Thank you so much, Marcel. I am so excited about today. What a good day to be part of Contract Cities. I will give an official bio, but we are just so excited to welcome Supervisor Hahn to be with us this afternoon. Supervisor Janice Hahn was elected to serve LA County's 4th District on the Board of Supervisors in 2016. Before serving on the board, she was a school teacher, public affairs regional manager for Southern California Edison, member of the Los Angeles Charter Reform Commission, LA City Council member, and representative in the United States Congress. Wow, that's a lot. Born and raised in LA County, Janice has followed in the footsteps of her father, LA County Supervisor Kenny Hahn, throughout her public service career. On the Board of Supervisors, she has advanced a people-first agenda and continued her lifelong dedication to supporting working families. Supervisor Hahn has invested billions into building affordable public housing, strengthening public infrastructure, and securing funding to revolutionize transportation in Los Angeles. And I have witnessed firsthand, serving with her on the sanitation district, just how hard she fights for everyone. She is fearless. I love working with her. When she is on your team, you can rest assured you are well represented. And I just can't thank her enough for being here today. Welcome, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Madam President. Appreciate that introduction, and hello to everyone who's participating today in this Contract Cities event. I do miss being with you in person for sure, and I look forward to the times that we can all meet again for our annual conventions. You know, I just have to start out by saying last year was a very tough year for all of us. I don't know if any of us ever thought that we would be governing during a worldwide pandemic. And, you know, in LA County, we've had 22,000 deaths. And it's been such a challenge for our local governments, but clearly the County of Los Angeles being the county with the largest health department, the public health department, it really fell on us I like to say we were really threading the needle between protecting the public's health and protecting people's livelihoods and their jobs and the economy. And trust me, every time we had to make a decision that resulted in shutting down a business, limiting a capacity of a business to even operate, knowing that our decisions were going to have a ripple effect with that business then losing their own income, maybe having a difficult time paying their rent or their mortgage, having to lay people off. Not to mention the devastating effect of people actually getting this horrible virus and succumbing to this virus. I don't think any of us a year ago, when the World Health Organization declared a worldwide pandemic, none of us knew what we were getting into. And it was almost like every month we would get new information about what this virus was. In the beginning, we weren't even sure how it was transmitted. And then the more we learned, the more we realized that we had to put in place certain safety protocols that would try to slow the spread, prevent the spread. But it just caught like wildfire in all of our cities and throughout this county. It was hard to get ahead of it. It was hard to get control of it, but we did the best we could. And I want to give a big shout out to my colleague, Supervisor Barger, who became the chair of the board. We rotate the chair of the board every year, and she became the chair of the board during the year of the pandemic, and did had such a tough job. She was the one that had to show up every day at the press conference and relate the statistics about what we were facing, how many people were testing positive, how many people were dying, the devastation in our nursing homes and our long-term healthcare facilities. So she really was the face of the pandemic. I don't know if she wants to be known by that the rest of her life, but clearly she showed incredible leadership to the rest of the county. I think the good news, though, and it's kind of something we've always said, I know I've said, once we get a vaccine, it will be a game changer. And clearly that is what is happening right now. We've already administered 3 million vaccines in LA County, and that has caused an incredible drop in our cases, in our hospitalizations. And, we had been seeing just recently 15,000 new cases of coronavirus every day. Now we're down to less than 100 per day. So you can see we're really moving in the right direction. Yes, we're a little concerned about these new variants, but everybody's keeping an eye on them. And so far, the science, the medical experts are saying that these vaccines are addressing these new variants. So we're keeping an eye on and make sure they don't take off. But we entered this red tier in LA County much quicker than we thought we would. And I believe it's because we're vaccinating more people. And Catherine and I were definitely the supervisors that really urged our health department to align our rules and regulations with what the state had given us as guidelines. Because when we sort of deviated from that, we found that's what caused a lot of confusion. There was some anger out there. There was some hostility out there against LA County when we tried to be a little more restrictive with our rules on various businesses in LA County. And, it happened because we have the most people. We're the densest in terms of population in the state of California. So we were just concerned that we didn't want this to go in the wrong directions. But the good news is our schools can reopen. We can have indoor dining again. Our gyms are open. Other businesses are open. And the next thing I'm focusing on, because I heard, particularly from the restaurants in all of your cities, most of them, the majority of them are really trying to play by the rules. They're really trying to comply. And yet, maybe their table was 6 feet apart or 7 feet apart, not 8 feet apart. And our health inspectors came in and slapped them with a $500 fine. And this is after we had, we shut them down, right? We limited their capacity. We told them they had to invest in, all their outdoor dining facilities and heaters and gazebos and, created so much outdoor activity. And then we come in and hit them with a $500 fine on the first visit. So my colleagues just passed unanimously a motion that I brought forth this week to say, you know what, after we put in place a new protocol, your first visit to one of these businesses or restaurants, let's focus on educating, not fining. Let's focus on, hey, maybe have you thought about putting this table in this angle, which would achieve the same purpose, as opposed to bringing out the tape measure and saying, you're off, here's a $500 fine. I really feel for all of your businesses in your cities. I feel for all of the breweries, the restaurants, some of the small retail. I feel for them. They have had a very difficult year, which has translated to you guys having a difficult year in terms of the revenue that you've also lost as a result of the businesses not making the money they were making. So I want us to recover, right? I'm going to be in the mode of helping people recover, get back to some sense of normalcy, but I'm not in the mood to punish people at this point. I mean, there will be some bad actors, and you can certainly help us with those bad actors in your own cities. But for the most part, I think people are really trying to do the right thing. It's just hard to keep up with all of the new tiers and rules and regulations. I went to one restaurant in one of our cities, and he had a 3-ring binder of all the protocols that we've issued in the last year. So there were so many he couldn't keep up with it. So that's what I'm working on is more education, not punishment. And to be honest with you, we're going in so quickly in the right direction that we could enter the orange tier by early April, and that would allow us to reopen more businesses and a lot more things. But I don't think this is the time to let our guard down. I think you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that from Dr. Fauci at the national level, and you're going to hear it from our governor, and you're going to hear it from us in the county that it feels good to get back to some sense of normalcy, but we can't let our guard down at this point. We still need to practice safety protocols when we're out and about. I think one of the greatest pieces of news is that we have the American Rescue Act that just got signed into law, which will be $350 billion for our state and local governments. And I know the last time around, it did not go to all the cities. And I heard from many of you that you were a little upset that the money came to the county and then it was up to us to decide how we appropriated it. But I think your budgets and your workforces took a big hit last year. So there were a lot of us that advocated on the second stimulus bill that it would go directly to you. And that's what has happened. And I think that's really good news for you. I think we've been so COVID focused. I know I have. I have never been more focused on an issue in my whole life. It's all I can think about is how do we get through this pandemic? But I do know that as we're getting out, as we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, we really need to work on economic recovery. And I know when Catherine was chair, she created an economic resilient recovery task force from all the sectors in our economy. And they gave good suggestions on what it would help to recover. But you know what? That's when we thought last July 4th was going to be the reopening of the world. And as we see, we're still in it. I know President Biden has given this July 4th as a time maybe when we'll all really truly begin to celebrate Independence Day. But anything that you all can do to work with Supervisor Barger and I and the other supervisors to help us know what your businesses will need, what you as a city will need to recover, to come back, to be resilient, we want to hear. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I feel like this was I just watched a movie last night about Dunkirk. I can't watch enough movies about what happened at Dunkirk. I think that speaks to the resiliency in average people. And I feel like this was our Dunkirk moment last year, right? Average people, those of us who had no health background, really rose to the occasion. And when we needed to take the hard decisions and we needed to close things and we needed your assistance as we tried to protect the public's safety, you really rose to that moment. But we took a big hit last year. It was a lost year for our students who didn't have their proms and didn't have their graduations, people who didn't get married, people who couldn't even bury a loved one last year. This was a collective year of grief and loss, but there were so many of you that really rose to the occasion. And when we're through with it, we're still going to have to deal with our homeless issue. We're still going to have to deal with other things that really were important to us. And I'll just say, thank you to those of you who even last year helped me when it came to getting people off the streets, particularly our seniors who were 65 and older. And you helped with Project Room Keys, and you helped with building your own shelters. And I'm here again to say, if you're a city in my 4th district in this county, and you step up to the plate with any kind of suggestion on how we can get some of our seniors, particularly off the streets, I will help you. I will help you find the money to do that. And I think, I don't know, we didn't have our homeless count this year because of the COVID-19. I suspect our numbers are going to be worse, because we do know, though, even as hard as we tried to keep people from being evicted, we know so many people lost their jobs, couldn't pay their rent, and many of them probably were already one paycheck away from being homeless, and now they are. So we'll find all that out when we begin to assess the damage that this virus exposed. But I'm telling you again, if you're ready to help on that issue, I'm ready to help you. And I got to end up because I think my 20 minutes is also up, but I do want to say, one of the things we're really going to focus on is mental health response, right? We in the county, we're not defunding our law enforcement, but we're reimagining what they can do. And we know we've put too many hats on our law enforcement officers. And now we're going to move to finding a way to get our mental health professionals more involved in some of these 911 calls, so that if someone has a mental health crisis, we can have an outcome that actually gets them what they need, as opposed to necessarily having an armed response to a family member who really is crying out for help. So I think I'm giving you 1 minute for Q&A. That was my goal.
Actually, you have 12 minutes, but only if you want them all.
No.
Only if you want them all. If you have a question, you can use the raise hand function in Zoom in the reactions, or you can put your question in the chat. One question that I do have for the county I'm interested in knowing is, are you talking about when the end of these rental eviction moratoriums are over, what is the county looking at in terms of support and resources for people who haven't been paying rent this whole time?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, obviously we were trying to do eviction moratoriums sort of 3 months at a time or 1 month at a time, because we kept thinking we wanted to make sure we weren't doing it longer than it was necessary. And I will tell you, I heard from lots of landlords who were like, there's two sides to this equation. There's the property owners who also have to pay their mortgage, and there's the renters who had to pay their rent. But there is, the state of California has created a state rent relief program, and that landlords can now apply for, because part of the problem we faced in the county, I heard from a lot of landlords who said our programs only spoke to the tenant, and the tenant had to apply, but then the money did go directly to the landlord. But many of them were bummed out because their tenants weren't applying and they weren't paying rent, and they found themselves in quite a predicament having to pay their mortgages. We were trying to work with the banks too, to work with property owners and the holders of the mortgage. We thought they should also work to give a little relief during this time to their property owners. So, I think I want to say June is when the next one expires, and we'll be looking at whether or not we should extend the eviction moratorium. We just don't want people to be on the streets, but again, we also feel for the landlords who, need to pay their mortgages.
Understood. Okay. One question that came in the chat, when can we expect the next update to the LA County COVID health orders?
Well, I didn't hear that.
When can we expect the next update to the LA County COVID health orders? So right now, I think we're red tier. So
yeah, so we think the first week in April, we may be moving to the orange tier, and we will have a new set of guidelines and protocols. But again, I have been on the side of let's align with the state when they come out with their guidelines, so there's no confusion between counties. I know I have cities, Whittier, for instance, who, when we're different than Orange County, they complain that their residents will go across the street to eat in a restaurant if Orange County is a little less restrictive. So we're trying to align with the state, which puts us in a line with our neighboring counties, which I think is less confusing for people.
Another question that's come in, can you provide an update on LA Found?
Thank you. That's a great question. You know, for those of you who don't know, LA Found is the program that I helped to establish that provides people who have Alzheimer's or dementia, or parents who have kids who are on the autism spectrum, people who tend to wander when they don't realize it. And we provide trackable bracelets. They're not GPS, so we don't know where people are all the time, but it's a radio frequency that partners with our sheriffs who take their helicopters up with that frequency. And we've been able to locate and find people, within the hour. And as you know, that could have a bad outcome, which it did in the beginning, which is why I started this program, of a 56-year-old woman who wandered away from her family when they were going to the LA County Museum of Art, and they never found her alive again. So I don't have any updates on that program. I think I'm getting a note from my staff. We have, she's saying, look it up yourself, lafound.lacounty.gov. That's lafound.lacounty.gov, and free bracelets are available. So we're not limiting who we give these bracelets to because of your ability to pay. We've raised enough money so that everyone can have these. So if any of you have a family member, any of you know someone in your circle who, again, has Alzheimer's or dementia, and they have even if they have a full-time caregiver, even if your mother is the full-time caregiver for her husband, right? That's too much responsibility for one person, because every once in a while, she's going to want to take a nap. Every once in a while, she's going to want to, focus on something else. Every once in a while, she's going to turn her head, and that person can wander away. If they have the bracelet, all she has to do then is call 911, and the operator will say, do they have one of these LA Found bracelets? And then the rescue begins. So it's really a special program, and I'm very proud of it. But make sure, if you know anybody, you connect to that website and get them a bracelet.
And Allie did put that in the chat, so thank you for that. I'm going to throw it to Jennifer Perez next.
Good afternoon, Supervisor. I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you to you and your team and your office. The City of Norwalk had a meeting this morning with Ivan, and we know that together our hearts and our minds are in the right direction, and we're working to find solutions in all of our areas of the county. And I just want to say thank you to you and your entire team.
Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate you saying that. That means more to me. We have, certainly all of the cities have struggled a little bit with some of our solutions to the homeless problem, and we get that. But the most important thing you said is that we need to communicate with you. We need to work with you. We need to communicate with you, and we need to make sure that you all have all the information that we have, and not try to pull anything fast on you. And you have been a great partner once we figured that out. And thank you for that. Again, big problem, not going away anytime soon. I need all of you to be like like the mayor of Norwalk, by saying, let's work together to solve this problem. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Janice.
And next, I'll throw it to our Vice President, Mark Warnick.
Hi,
Hello,
Mark.
Hello, Supervisor.
Hi, Mark.
Coming to you from your favorite city in District 4, Lomita. I just want to say thank you to you and Supervisor Barger for your leadership on especially the breweries, because as you know, we have 2 fine breweries in Lomita, and you visited Project Barley, and they're so thankful for your leadership and for Supervisor Catherine Barger in a time where it was desolate. And so for you and Supervisor Barger, your leadership was incredible. So thank you. And then also looking forward to our city partnering with you at the end of April on giving some food out with the LA Food Bank. We're looking forward to that. We had a nice walkthrough yesterday with Erica Velasquez.
Yeah.
And so thank you again. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark. Again, appreciate your partnership and your leadership. And again, we didn't know really, there's so many of us didn't understand what these shutdowns meant. And here was this brewery in Lomita called Project Barley. This guy and his wife put their entire life savings into opening up this small business, this brewery, right on a main thoroughfare in Lomita. And a month later, we locked him down and shut him down. And he was devastated. So because, Mark, you brought it to our attention, he called our office. We were able to try to work something out, but still, breweries are in a tough place. They're not really restaurants, they're not really bars, and so they kind of fall into this weird category. But you know what? A site visit at a brewery, when my staff said you really need to do, I'm like, well, okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sounds like you had a tough job that day. We want to thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you for your continued leadership on the board and for your partnership with Contract Cities. We always enjoy the time we get to spend with you, and thank you for keeping an open door and an open mind to all of the requests and concerns that we have coming from our communities, because we know we're all trying to serve the same people. So we really appreciate you. Best of luck in all of your work.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Marcel. And again, you are such a great organization, and your advocacy positions are so important to those of us who are governing from the county level. Thank you for all that you all do too. Looking forward to seeing you in the desert someday.
Thank you, Supervisor. Before you go, Norwalk does produce some really good mayors, just, not speaking from
That's right.
anything like that. So
that's right.
Best mayors out there. Thank you.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye-bye. And next, we have the pleasure of welcoming Supervisor Barger. I have her official bio here. Supervisor Catherine Barger proudly serves the residents of the 5th District, dedicated to providing effective, responsive representation to Los Angeles County residents. She began her career in public service as an intern in the office of former Supervisor Antonovich. She rose to become his chief deputy in 2001, where she served until her election to the Board of Supervisors in 2016. What a story. Supervisor Barger both served as chair of the board and was reelected for her second term in 2020. Supervisor Barger continues to advocate for services and programs to improve the quality of life for foster children, seniors, veterans, those with disabilities, and those with mental illness. She is committed to keeping our neighborhoods and communities safe, working with federal leaders, law enforcement officials, and judicial officers to implement vital public safety initiatives. And we just have so enjoyed working with your office, especially during this extraordinarily difficult time. Your fast and clear leadership on the board, your partnership with Contract Cities has really meant the world to us. I'm just so excited about the work that you're doing, and I'm grateful that you're here with us today. I'll turn it to you, Supervisor.
Thank you. And I so appreciate all the work that you're doing. I've gotten to know you a lot better thanks to the virus. But let me just say before I start, it's hard to follow Janice Hahn, and I made the mistake of listening. So you're going to hear much of what she said again. But this way you can't say you didn't know. I'm going to reiterate some things about rent relief and all, but I just want to say thank you to you all and let you know how much I value the relationship we have. It truly is a privilege to share about how the pandemic has impacted all aspects of life in Los Angeles County and how we are working toward recovery. I think one of the things I say is we've talked about deaths, which, for every life lost, it's been horrific, but it's time for us to focus on what we can do to reopen and reopen safely. Just to give you a little background, as chair of the board of the supervisors last year, I was tasked with directing how Los Angeles County and its departments managed the pandemic. The Department of Public Health is the lead, as you all know, and the public health officer is issuing orders, and then they are ratified by our board. It's driven by public health. This pandemic really forced us to adapt how we worked internally at the county and externally with our partners, including you all. We are continuing to work with the state and federal governments to address the challenges, including providing adequate testing, ensuring hospital capacity, which thank God it's now gone down significantly, conducting contact tracing, which is a challenge, but we have been successful in that area, rolling out the vaccine, which again, I thank each one of our partners who are getting it out into the communities as we get the supply in, but also reopening the economy and getting people back to work. I want to talk about the vaccine rollout. While we've faced challenges rolling out the vaccine in the first few weeks, I truly believe we have turned a corner and they are more effectively getting the vaccine into our communities. As of the end of last week, more than 1.8 million individuals had been vaccinated in LA County, and of these, almost 900,000 individuals are now fully vaccinated. We are not letting doses go to waste. LA County is one of the highest at 94% of all doses received as of last week have been administered. There is still a big task ahead of us, especially to ensure the vaccine is accessible to all populations and to increase the federal supply we receive. And I'm confident in the efficient system in place. We began these efforts by vaccinating healthcare workers and those 65 and older and have made good progress. As of last week, more than 60% of LA County residents 65 and older had received at least one dose of the vaccine. On March 1st, we began vaccinating education and child care workers, food and agriculture workers, law enforcement, and all of our emergency responders. This expanded to include janitorial service workers and transportation and logistics employees. I am cognizant that food service workers and law enforcement have had to show up to work on the front lines each and every day for the last year and have experienced tremendous loss in their workforce. They need to be vaccinated quickly to ensure their safety as they continue to work. Beginning this week, people 18 to 64 with serious health conditions are also eligible to receive the vaccine. I want to just say that when we talk about opening up, understand this is driven by the state. So when we say we are now increasing the pool of who can be vaccinated, we have to recognize that the limited supply of vaccine that we have. Johnson & Johnson is something that I am eager to receive because that is one shot and you're done. And it doesn't have to be held in the cold like Pfizer and or Moderna. This is going to be a game changer in our effort to vaccinate our hardest to reach communities. I can speak, my husband got the Johnson & Johnson at CVS and it was his choice. He could have waited for Moderna, but he actually wanted the Johnson & Johnson. It is equally as effective and it's something that once we get the supply in, it is going to really help us to really bring down the spread of this virus. I want to talk also about Blue Shield. Many have talked about what is Blue Shield's role as it relates to the vaccine process. We will be controlling all vaccination sites and prioritization in the state. We're working closely with them to make sure that one of the concerns we had is that Blue Shield would come in and reinvent the wheel. We have actually got our pods up that are still up at Magic Mountain, Northridge, Laco, in Downey, Fairplex, and the Forum. We're going to keep those up. but we're also going into the community, into areas where we know the virus has hit so hard, and we are going to take the vaccine out into the community, recognizing that there are individuals that don't have the ability to come to one of our super pods. I appreciate that the state is responding to the challenges as it relates to Blue Shield, because originally they weren't giving us much wiggle room. We want to make sure it's not confusing for our communities when the system is constantly changing. So our hope is that we will not reinvent the wheel, that what you see in place will continue as it is, and also grow with our federally qualified health clinics and our community clinics as well. Meanwhile, Los Angeles County is limited in the number of appointments we can accept based on the vaccine we receive. The city of LA runs Dodger Stadium, and I know that they've had to close down periodically because they don't have enough vaccine for the second doses. We have been very cognizant of the fact that we need to be able to vaccinate twice. So we have limited the number of appointments available, only to ensure that those that get the first also get the second. And that is why, again, I think Johnson & Johnson is going to be something that's going to be so valuable in this county, not only for the hard to reach, like the homeless, but also just for people that are in an age group that currently does not qualify for the vaccine. And I'm talking about younger adults. On average this year, we have received about 250,000 doses per week for our county of 10 million people. As those vaccines are administered, remember that many must go to people who need their second dose. And I emphasize that because we get a lot of calls in our office from people who are frustrated they can't get an appointment. I tried to get one for my husband. That's why I went to CVS. So I am in the same position as you. So I know the frustration in dealing with my turn. We are continuing to work with the state to address the concerns that I've heard and that I've experienced. So patience is a virtue. And on this one, I'm not being very virtuous because I'm equally as frustrated. I want to let you know that veterans may call the West LA VA campus for their vaccine. They are actually vaccinating on their own. Another component is Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente is providing vaccines to their members and is also partnering with us up in the Antelope Valley to provide doses to both members and non-members at a large-scale site up in the Antelope Valley Fairgrounds. Now, I heard you talking to Janice about the rental assistance, so I just want to touch base on that. Over the last few months, the county has been working diligently to distribute nearly $110 million in emergency rental relief funds. Of that total, $100 million was set aside from nearly $1 billion the county received in direct corona relief funds from the Federal CARES Act. Recently, the state of California passed SB 91, which among other things created a new state program for additional emergency rental assistance. The bill pays up to a year of unpaid arrears from April 2020 through March 2021 and allows up to 3 months of future rent payments from April of 2021 through June of 21, depending on availability of the funds. This program leverages federal and state funding to keep people housed and to ensure those impacted financially do not find themselves in significant arrears. The program also prioritizes households with the highest need, targeting households with less than 80% of the area median income, with special focus on households below the 50% of the area median income and households experiencing unemployment for at least 90 days. During this critical time, as many protections have been in place for tenants, we cannot overlook that mom and pop landlords are struggling without a lifeline. This effort and the one the county recently enacted will go a long way to provide support for landlords who still have their own mortgages, property taxes, and yes, their bills. County residents stand to receive nearly $330 million from combined state and federal funding. The state recently announced its intent to lead this program, noting a single program would be less confusing. I'm hoping they are right. So we cross our fingers because I am always an advocate for local control, but the state has made it clear that they do not believe local programs would be as effective and have indicated that parallel programs could lead to duplication of benefits, which would then need to be repaid by the county. Therefore, the county has agreed to support the state's efforts to administer the program, and I remain cautiously optimistic about its success. we are continuing discussions with the state to ensure their program works for the residents of LA County. Additionally, we are coordinating with the cities of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Santa Clarita on their program structures, as they are all set to receive their own funding allocation under SB 91. And let me just say, we've reached out to the Apartment Association. We are trying to make this application process well known, because I'm surprised how many people are not aware of the fact that they can apply. And the arrears is an important component of this, because many people are frustrated because once they do get back to work, they don't know how they're going to be able to make up the past rent. So this will give them a clean slate. And I'm really hoping that you all can get the word out about the ability to apply for this money. Then we're going to talk about eviction moratorium. This is SB 91, had important impacts on both the state and local eviction moratoriums. SB 91 extends many of the provisions from Assembly Bill 3088 through the end of June 21. SB 91 and AB 3088 establish that state's eviction moratorium preempts local moratoriums and puts provisions in place related to rent repayment plans, tenant protections, and property owner requirements, among other specifics. Accordingly, at the end of February, the county extended its moratorium through the end of June, in line with both state and federal moratorium. Notably, the eviction moratorium was also amended to include additional tenant protections, as well as deferral of registration fees for units that fall under the county's rent stabilization ordinance. As we continue to move forward in vaccinating our population and begin the task of restarting our economy, there will come a time for the eventual phase out of this county's moratorium. And, I think I heard Supervisor Hahn talk about where we are with the tiers. I think that time is not too far off. And so I think that the date that we've got for it to sunset is probably going to be the date that it's going to sunset. I heard also Janice talk about Project Room Key and the homeless. And so I'd like to shift gears to talk about the ongoing homelessness crisis. I am working closely with elected leadership in our cities to discuss short and long-term solutions for housing and service delivery in the entire region. We need solutions that are quick and easy to stand up. We cannot rely on a one-size-fits-all approach. Through March, we've expanded our winter shelter program to provide immediate extra beds across Los Angeles County when it's cold. Using existing facilities is the most efficient and cost-effective way to provide shelter. Shelters can be at a gymnasium, a church, a community center, or another suitable public building. California also implemented Project Room Key during the pandemic to provide housing in a hotel or motel for those who are highly vulnerable because of their age or their underlying health condition. Through the Project Room Key initiative, 7,000 people were brought inside at 38 sites during this pandemic. There are currently 3 Project Room Key sites still in operation within my district, including Lancaster, Palmdale, and Santa Clarita. In our next phase, called Project Home Key, we are purchasing old hotels and motels and turning them into permanent housing. The county is in the process of purchasing 10 sites across the county and will continue to identify more as available. 15,000 individuals will be served over the next few years by LASA's Recovery Rehousing Plan, which targets the same population of highly acute individuals that Project Room Key served. Meanwhile, we still find ourselves in a reality where thousands of highly vulnerable individuals sleep and live outdoors during this pandemic. I believe every strategy to combat homelessness must be tailored to meet the local need. We are actively collaborating with local officials to create a lasting solution that will end the cycle of homelessness for those in the riverbeds and on our streets, and mitigate the impact of this crisis on neighboring communities. And I just have to say, for me, my passion is mental health, and I'm going to be working very aggressively to address both the mental health laws and also the capacity that we have for those that are truly deteriorating on the street, that don't have the ability to be moved into a Project Room Key, that needs stabilization through hospitalization. So I'm working closely with Dr. Sharon with the Department of Mental Health, and I'm going to be bringing Dr. Drew Pinsky along as well to come up with solutions so that we can actually get the most hard to serve and the most vulnerable on our streets off the streets, get them the care that they need so they don't end up in our jails, and get them on a life to recovery. I think it's important, and I think it's long overdue. Lastly, I was told to bring up anything that I thought y'all could help with, and so I'm going to bring this up. We're talking about law enforcement on several different levels, but I want to address it as it relates to public transportation. Metro just completed a very comprehensive and ambitious customer experience plan. As part of the process, we obtained detailed feedback from customers in an attempt to use the insight gained to prioritize customer experience investments, i.e. making it so that people actually want to take public transportation. Respondents overwhelmingly expressed concerns about security on the system. Yet there is a real possibility that our Metro board is inclined to reduce the sworn law enforcement and security presence on our system in the near future. This is in response to what I believe is a small but very organized and vocal group of people who clearly do not represent the folks who use our system, but are having undue influence. The stigma of an unsafe transit system is very difficult to overcome. If we go down this path and pull law enforcement off of our trains and off of our rail, we will abandon our duty to ensure the safety of our riders and thwart our own efforts to get people back into our system after COVID-19. So I would ask you all to use your voice. I think there has to be a balance. And I believe, as someone who worked to bring the mental evaluation teams to LA County when I was a deputy for Mike Antonovich, I know that law enforcement is not always the end all as it relates to de-escalating situations. But for us to take security off of our transit system, I believe is going to jeopardize not only those that would consider taking public safety, but it's going to jeopardize people's lives moving forward. So in conclusion, I just want to thank you all for having me and for your interest and engagement on the issues impacting our communities. And I am happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate your partnership and all the hard work that you're doing. You shared a lot, and I think in a lot more detail. So I don't think it was duplicative at all. I'm glad that you were able to be here to help paint the picture for us. So again, if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat or use your raise hand function.
Hey, Marcel, Jorge's getting you one of those bracelets that Janice talked about, by the way.
I don't know what makes you think we don't already have one, but
it'll go nicely with the ankle bracelet.
Probation only.
Sorry, Lindsay.
It's all right. It's all right. We're all family here. Does anyone have a question that you'd like to ask the supervisor? Maybe you just covered everything that everybody
So
wanted.
Can I ask Steve Ty when he's going to cut his hair?
It's an excellent question.
May I ask, why do you ask that question? It's 378 days, so what's the rush?
Point well taken. Point well taken. Well, I mean, if no one has any question, I'll just say that
we do have one.
Oh,
we do have one. I'll turn it to Frank Zarunian.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, Catherine. I simply wanted to say how much we appreciate your steady hand on that board and your thoughtfulness in policymaking. As one who teaches the subject matter, I really, really appreciate your leadership on that board. And I hope that God gives you strength to serve many, many years. So really appreciative of all that you do. As Janice said, it's been a frustrating year. You've heard from me several times, several emails about what we were doing to our businesses and how we were applying one-size-fits-all policy. My apologies for sending constantly, being on top, but having said that, I think hope is in the air, and we're looking forward to seeing our communities regain that vibrancy that we all appreciate. So again, I just did not want you to leave without having the gratitude of California Contract Cities Association, and particularly as we partner with you on a regular basis for a lot of the things that we do. We want to continue that partnership. I'm sure that I speak for many of my colleagues, but it's really such a pleasure to have you. I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, Frank. And I have to say, and I didn't mention it when I was talking, but one of the things I did early on when we were at the Safer to Home is to begin to have a roadmap for recovery. And I felt it was important, similar to what we've done with Measure M, where it's from the bottom up. We brought in industry leaders to work with public health, because public health knows how to deal with the public health orders, but the industry knows how to apply those into their own industry. And so we have roadmap for recovery for different industries, whether it's movie, motion picture, small businesses, food establishments. And my goal is, once we do get into the orange tier, which, to Supervisor Hahn's point, we are actually right now, our numbers are in the orange, but we have to stay with those numbers for 3 weeks in order to get into the orange tier. But the good news is we are actually numbers wise in the orange tier, but we're not officially allowed to be in it until we hold those numbers for 3 weeks. But my goal is to make sure that we allow industry to work with us versus us dictating to them. And I think that's going to be vital to reopening the economy and doing it in a way that's going to ensure the safety of all. So thank you, Frank. And you're not a pain. I actually felt your remarks. Sometimes, we live in I've been coming in every day, but you get in a situation where you are dealing with the crisis each and every day. And sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. So your comments and your emails really helped us to focus on a few things that truly are relevant. And I appreciated everything you brought in.
I have one other question. I know that our association, brought questions to you at the time it was being discussed, but now with the new ballot measure having been passed, how do you see the ATI plan implementation actually rolling out, and what should we expect to see in our cities as it actually takes shape and is implemented?
Well, I think, I've said this all along. I'm not going to predetermine what it's going to look like, because I really do believe that transparency is important, but also input from the communities. And I think and the reason why I keep saying how important you all are is that you represent our cities, and it's important for you all to weigh in and push the direction in terms of where you believe it needs to be. Because what I'm finding is there's a handful of people that are driving the narrative, and I don't know if that necessarily represents the entire county. And this is being done in real time. I mean, with COVID, it's given people a lot of time to focus on certain things. So I would, as it relates to ATI, I think we are trying to be as transparent as possible, but also make sure that there's as much input from the public. So I'm hoping that the engagement is larger than what I'm seeing right now, because I'm seeing the same group driving the narrative. And I don't know necessarily if that's something that all cities are going to want at the end, but by the time it's baked, it's too late.
Got it. One other question that's come in from Mark Mitchell. I'll throw it to you.
Good afternoon, Supervisor. Great to see you.
Hey, Mark.
We had a quick chat with the Supervisor Solis last week, and one of the things I threw out was this ability to really enhance our programs to ensure that the food disparity issues, which has gotten even worse during COVID, is addressed. And she talked about her district a little bit, just wanting to maybe hear a little bit from your end on your district and how those things are going. They're so crucial to this time that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that, Mark. One of the things that I've been really shocked by is how many people are food insecure, and I've gone to food giveaways in my district, and there are people that told me that they never thought they would be in line to get food provided to them, and it's because one of the things that we've always heard is that you're one paycheck away. and they found out they were one paycheck away. And either their hours were cut or they aren't getting paid. And then quite frankly, the state unemployment system was messed up. And I was talking with actually a friend of mine who had all the valid information and was eligible, but because they were in a situation trying to clean up their roles, she couldn't get approved for unemployment. And so the good news is they finally cleaned it up. The bad news is people that really needed it weren't getting it. And so I think the food highlights just how serious this pandemic impacted, not just we know that it impacted people that were on the lower end of the scale as it relates to earning, but we also saw the impact it had on the middle class and people that traditionally didn't think they'd ever be in this position. And I saw it firsthand, because when I go out and do food distribution, I don't do it for photo ops. I actually spend time handing out the food because I want to know who it is. And these are people with kids. And then you complicate it by not having kids in school. So they are daycare as well. So when they are allowed to go back to work and the schools aren't open, they don't have any place to send their children. So this pandemic has just highlighted how vulnerable we all can be at literally the flip of a switch. Because it's been a year, but as you all recall, I remember clearly, it was within 2 weeks that we went from what was normal to complete shutdown. And so I think it highlights for all of us the vulnerability, but also it highlights for me, and one of the things I'm invested in is financial literacy for our youth, especially for our foster youth, because you are one paycheck away, but if you start putting aside $5 here and $5 there, it adds up. And so we are focused on financial literacy in the county to help people prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Supervisor, why did you not ask Mark Mitchell when he's going to get his haircut?
I couldn't hear you. Couldn't hear you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Great answer.
Well, the question
Great
is, one of the things is, when am I going to get my haircut?
Well, you either couldn't hear me or you did not want publicly to say what was going to come out of your mouth.
You take a guess.
Yes, I know.
Well, we thank you very much once again for being with us. We so appreciate you. I'm going to throw it to Marcel.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. Steve is going to, at the end of the meeting, he's going to try to sell everybody some encyclopedia. So if you all would stay on, he's going to do his spiel from the telemarketing headquarters. Supervisor, I just wanted to say real quick, thank you for being such a supporter of the California Contract Cities Association. During your time as chair, as Supervisor Hahn mentioned, you came in at what was an unfortunate time, but it was your leadership that really helped get us through the pandemic. And everything, dealing with everything from Project Room Key to now Project Home Key, and to all of everything in between, and dealing with the pandemic and recovery. And you've always been incredibly responsive to every one of our requests. So I want to take just a second to thank you. And I'm going to echo what Frank said. You've been a voice of reason on the board when sometimes, some of our cities are pulling their hair out, wondering, is that the right decision to make? And so I want to thank you for your steadfastness and supporting our cities, and we look forward to continuing to work with you as we continue to do good things together for the county and our cities.
Thank you. Well, you make it easy, Marcel, and again, Lindsay. You all are a joy to work with, and I mean that sincerely. And I want to thank you. When we've called on you to rally the troops, you have been front and center. And I'm only as good as the people I work with, and so I thank you all for everything that you're doing. We've all got a tough job ahead of us.
Well, thank you for everything. We just, again, appreciate the partnership, the communication, your willingness to hear us out, because it's tough out there, and you know what it's like to be on the front lines. So,
yep. Thank you all. Be safe. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. For those of your colleagues and friends who weren't able to be here, know that this will be posted on the Contract Cities YouTube channel and available for you to review in case any of the information you want to reference later too. So thanks once again. Hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Great job, Madam President.